That's the name I gave him, Mr. Grumpy.
I like that name. But so did this bad man, did you ever find out the history of the spirit, like who he could be?
Tried everything to get his name, and he usually got swear words. Got told to F off I don't know how many times. And then a couple of weeks after we started investigating there, and what was interesting, when we first went there, I gave my first name. And I said, I'm an investigator. I've come here to investigate, etc. After a couple of weeks, he started coming through using my full name, including my surname, which he couldn't know because I never used it. So I went up there one night alone because I was so angry over it. Because I thought, I always say, don't follow me back. And I thought, something's not right here. And I went up there alone at night, and I got all sorts of stuff coming through. F this, F that, get out, using my full name. Just a real angry spirit. And I don't think he's anything other than he was human and angry. Wouldn't give me any details, but we had some other spirits that come through asking for help, a lady in particular, and it seems to be, looking at the gravestones in the area, she was one of the ladies that's buried there, and the others seem to be tied to the land because we found there's buildings that used to be around the church that no longer exist, going back some time, but we could not get his name. He would not give it.
Jeez. I mean, it's I almost wonder if it was a priest who, or something, a priest that was in that church that had something bad happen to him, like he got excommunicated or something, and maybe he
I
often.
even asked that question, and all I got told was F off, and it come clear as day. And I just started laughing because I find it funny. And I even said to him at one point, we're having a really good ITC session, and I said, if you carry this on, I'm going to sit here all night singing I Know a Song that gets on your nerves. And after that, it just went dead. We had nothing. And for several weeks going back, it was just so quiet and he wouldn't communicate. And then we decided, me and my other half, to do a session there with me in the back in the churchyard. And then what my other half would do, she would sit in the porch church area. And all she got come through was get Wayne Hewett out. And he went nearly 2 months, he would not communicate with me. He'd only speak to my partner. And he would call her the B word and tell her to get me out. So he's a happy chap.
Yeah, he sounds like a very happy person, to say the least. But that's why I wonder if maybe he was a priest who got excommunicated, and then he just took his own life or something, and that's why he's stuck in the church. But
I would know his history. I really would.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever tried like digging back into the history of the church through like books or anything?
I've looked into the history, see if anything happened there of note in the area. I found there was a murder and a lady dumped nearby. We looked into that at the church. Don't seem to be any connection, even though it was only a mile down the road. Someone else died a few years back nearby the church in not very nice circumstances, but again, can't tie anything to the church of that area. But we know that going back some way, there was a lot of buildings in that area and a lot of things going on before the actual church was even built. So a lot of history. And you got Roman history as well nearby as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, anywhere in the UK, you got so many different cultures coming in different points in time. It's just it could be a body buried underneath the church that spirit still resides in the land, and they just
could be anything.
I mean, possibilities are endless. Hey, Tamara, I do see you there. Sorry, I was waiting for the right moment to say hi to you. Tamara's from my other paranormal podcast that we do live on this network on Saturday nights, which we are on the Pair Host Network. If I didn't say that yet, that's the network we stream on. She's on my other podcast, Global Strangeness, with two other friends, and she asked how we're doing.
All good, thanks. Feeling better now.
Yeah, Wazza had a little hospital trip this morning, but nothing too serious, or he wouldn't be here today to talk to me. Thank God.
I'll survive.
That's what we like to hear. But so, any other experiences while you're investigating?
I've been researching and investigating since 15. So I've got a lot over the years. We done, funny enough, another one recently, actually. That was another old church, historical site. We went to visit there, and there's actually ruins outside this church of what was the original church. And you can go outside, walk around the ruins, etc. And inside, we felt an atmosphere, but it was actually like a really nice atmosphere. And we sat down, we started running some EVPs, running some ITC, and we had this lady come through. And I said to her, "What's your name?" And she said, "Nicola," straight away. And we started talking to her, and we were like, "Okay, did you used to worship here?" "Yes." "Okay." So I started working on how long ago that was. And we seemed to narrow it down within the last couple of 100 years. And we carried on talking to her, and I was standing near the pulpit. And bear in mind, it was a nice day at the time, pretty warm. Suddenly, everything goes really, really ice cold around me, to the point that when I'm breathing out, I've actually got steam coming out. And I called over my partner, and she comes over, and where I was standing was just absolutely ice cold, breathing out steam. And I just went, "Nicola, is that you?" "Yes." "Sorry." And it was just amazing. The way it just went so cold. And then we hear the door down the other end go and slam.
And did she disappear at that point, or were you able to get a response from her again, or was that her going through the door?
We carried on talking for another 10 minutes, asking her questions. And in this church, they've got candles lit up where you can light a church, say a prayer for somebody. And thinking that obviously she worships there, my other half said to her, "When we leave, would you like us to light a candle for you?" She said, "Yes, please." So I went, "Okay, we'll light a candle on our way out," and we got "thank you." And that was the second session. We'd been there the day before, and we got some responses come through. We didn't really get any communication, sort of direct. So we thought, if we go a second day, let the place warm up, see what we get. So getting the information we got from her, going outside doing some research, found a Nicola that died about 150 years ago.
Interesting. I mean, churches are always a hotbed of spirit activity if you're looking for it. But was the original church destroyed during one of the wars, like one of the world wars, or?
I looked into that, and originally it was a big, big church. It was massive. And what happened was they couldn't continue looking after it. So back in the old days, sometimes what they would do, if they couldn't afford to look after it, they would knock down a church and just rebuild one smaller. There's another place I've investigated in the UK called Covehive Church. If you look at that, you see what I mean. You've got ruins there that are ancient, and inside those ruins, you have this little church from the 1800s. Quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's the churches in Britain and all over Europe from the early days are just incredible, incredible. I love them, but I mean, as an Assassin's Creed player, I've climbed a lot of churches in the UK on that game, but but so I love the history of like religion and churches across UK and everything, the Vikings and all that. Like it's just to me, it's fascinating as could be. But I wanted to ask you, since you call your paranormal team Night Sky Paranormal, do you guys ever do any UFO alien type investigating or?
I don't do UFO investigating. I'm interested in it, and I read up on it all the time. I find it fascinating because I love space and everything. But I don't actually do the UFO investigating. I know a few people that do, and funny enough, I actually live not far from Rendlesham, if you know about that incident. Rendlesham Forest.
Yes. Okay. I was about to say forest. It was a military. It was a military incident, right? Like a bunch
Yeah,
of.
known as the Rendlesham Forest incident. I'm about 15 minutes from there, where I am now.
Ooh, that's supposed to be a hotbed to this day of UFO sightings.
There's a lot of people that go there, and the woods there can be quite interesting.
I'm sure. I mean, well, my house, we've seen UFOs outside of it too. We live on top of a mountain, so we think they're taking the materials out of the mountain for fuel or something along those lines. That's what the common belief in my town is.
Yeah, there's so much going on at the minute. I mean, people talk about disclosure, but I really don't think they're ready just to come out and say, "Hey, everyone, they're here."
Yeah,
No,
no.
it's going in the right direction, but whether it's in our lifetime still, unless an incident happens where it becomes obvious, I
Yeah,
don't think I just have to come out and say it.
unless it's like the day the Earth stood still, where one literally lands and says, "We are going to destroy Earth unless you guys can convince us not to in the next week." But other than
That
that,
happens, I'm just going to ask him to take me with him, get me off his planet.
I don't think you'll be the only one by far to do that. But it's gonna be like Independence Day with a group of people on top of a building with signs saying, "Take me, take me." But
We'll be lined up.
so, have you ever gone? Because Bigfoot is in the UK, right? I mean, I've heard mixed answers to this question, but Bigfoot is a thing in the UK.
Now, a lot of people, when you tell them that, they don't realise, but in the UK, there's a hell of a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Cornwall, they've got them down there. They've been sighted in Wales, Cannock Chase. There's many places they've actually been sighted. And there is actually some people in this country that do Bigfoot researching.
Yeah, I am still in the process of trying to get people who do Bigfoot like research to get on this show. It's hard to locate them and hard to get them nailed down.
It fascinates me. It does.
Oh,
There's something out there.
there has to be. I mean, you don't see a creature all over the world in every country and then not have it exist. I mean, it's impossible. Impossible.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. But I would certainly love to meet him.
All right. So, since you're also in the UK, the other question I had is because the UK has a very vivid history of fae and fairies and all that. Do you guys ever do any of that type of research?
I have quite a fascination with elementals. I absolutely love them. And in the UK, across the UK, Ireland, there is so much elemental history. And one of the things over the years I've learned is that you don't upset them. Simple as that. Don't upset them. You get some people say they're bad, some people say they're good. I think a lot of the time they're indifferent. And as long as you don't upset them and you respect them, that's great. And you hear a lot of stories over here where we start building on places, we start taking woodland away, and then people start getting problems in their homes on places that used to be what we call green belt over here. So complete woodland stripped back.
Yeah.
And I think on an island as small as ours, you get to a point, the more you build, the more you push them back, the more you start getting problem with elementals.
Yeah, I mean, fae, fairies, elementals, whatever people want to call them, they have had a history in the UK for thousands of years, have they not?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
Been here a lot longer than us.
And these creatures, these spirits, whatever they may be, and extra-dimensional creatures, maybe even. That's a lot of people believe, but they've been our lore in every country since the beginning of time. So that I truly believe they had to be here before we were.
Yeah, I think they've been here such a long time. And the trouble is, what people don't realise from, like, say, America a lot of the time, is that the UK is a really small island. We're not a large country. We're smaller than most of your states.
Oh, God,
And
yeah.
you've got this constant building going on, a population expansion, and all these greenbelt areas being taken away. that normally would just be countryside that sometimes is so far out people won't even touch, and it's just being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So if you've got elementals out there and you're encroaching on their space, and I've just noticed over the last few years they seem to crop up quite a lot in this country, people having problems with elementals, and a lot of it is to do with what humans do.
Well, it's the same as having problems with regular animals we know about because of the same issue, because we're taking their land, and then you wonder why a bear or a bobcat's in your backyard if you live in America or the UK.
Exactly.
I mean, but did you ever investigate any of these complaints about an elemental bothering somebody?
Many years ago, it was a place up north. I got invited to go and investigate a building. Now, I didn't know much about it at the time. Went up there, but we went to this building that turned out to be a massive warehouse. They had forklifts in there, all sorts. And what had happened was the workers were. It started off they were finding taps turned on the bathroom for no reason. It's like, okay, fair enough. Then they'd find tools go missing. They would have things thrown at them when they were working on their own in the workshops. So you had poltergeist type activity going on. Then it started where they were seeing like black mists. And it had quite a mixture of things going on. It interested me. So I spent a little bit of time with my friend up north, and we investigated this place and we looked into the history of it. When we done the ITC sessions, we used to get words come through, but almost like a broken English, but responding to us. Very, very strange. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, are we dealing with someone that's foreign? What's going on? And the more we looked into it, we found out some of the other properties on the estate that had been built in the early 2000s have been having the same sort of problem. And this was actually built on woodland. It was stripped back. And they built these properties. And we thought, okay, we'll go with this. We'll look into all options. We couldn't get any responses for names, who we were dealing with, any deaths on the property. And we started asking about elementals. And it just kicked off. We got a response. And we got intelligent responses. And the more we looked into it, we found out there was a lot of anger there. And it didn't like people working in this building. So we started asking questions about, okay, tell us what's happened. Is it, to do with the forest? These buildings have been put on top of it. And what we actually figured was where they had built on some of this land, some of it was just fields, but there was a particular forest area. And it seemed to be this particular area they were angry about. And this is also the area where most of the buildings were being affected that were built on this previous forest. And they were taking it out on the people that actually worked in the warehouses. So what we had to do, obviously you can't take the buildings away, replant the forest. So with elementals, you have to show respect.
Of course.
So what we done, we tried to explain to them, it's not the fault of the people that are working here. Because the week before we had that conversation, somebody was actually pushed over coming down the stairs. And luckily they were only like 3 steps away. So things were starting to get quite nasty. So we said, look, we apologise on behalf of what we as humans have done. It's not their fault. So we can't suddenly take these buildings away. And what we got the owner and the staff to do was to go outside, and they were joined by the other buildings as well, people from 2 other buildings, and they actually planted some trees as a sign of respect. And they were like, we plant these for you and we'll look after them. And, please forgive humans for what we've done. And for months and months after, we would catch up with these people and they had no issue at all. It just stopped. It's all about respect. And as far as they were concerned, they weren't getting respect. Their land had been taken away. It was just making them realise that's not these people's fault.
Yeah, it's the developer's fault, basically. But Yeah, I mean, you hear in the stories all the time, like, oh, you have to leave them out like a saucer of milk or something. You always have to show them some kind of respect by leaving them some kind of little gift, and
Yeah.
that usually is, at least in the legends and the folklore, is how you get elementals or fairies or fae, whatever people like to call them, to
And if,
stop bothering you.
and if you've got a nature spirit, what better way to do it? Plant some trees,
Exactly, and you're do
flowers.
and you're doing a good thing for the environment at the same time. So you double win, but
But never
100%.
never annoy one. There's a saying that Satan sits in hell because he doesn't want to mess with elementals, and I think that's a good saying.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, if enough, I've read enough folklore when they get together and actually band together to fight something, it's never pretty for the other thing. That's for sure. But
Yeah, you want to be on their good side.
which almost makes me question: is Bigfoot an elemental? Maybe.
Oh, do you know what? Growing up, I was fascinated by Bigfoot because in 1902 they found the mountain gorilla,
Yep.
and before that, it was a cryptid
Yep.
because a cryptid is an animal that's not been discovered yet, and people were thinking that those that claimed to have seen this gorilla were absolutely nuts. And you look at what we found now. I mean, we found a shark not so long ago that was alive at the time of Shakespeare. It's that
The
old, 500 years old.
the green something shark, I believe.
Yes, Greenland shark.
Yeah.
Giant octopus was a cryptid.
Claw.
Sailors used to say when the ships got hit during World War II, they'd be taken down. We've since found out that exists and they're attracted to the colour of their life jackets.
Yeah.
So the fact that something could be living in somewhere so immense as the United States, your forest out there, I've got no doubt at all. But over the last few years, where I thought it was purely a primate, I've seen so much evidence that is just so strange. That doesn't add up. I mean, the way these things can be in front of somebody just disappear. The lights that are seen in the area where they're being seen. And it's the same over here in the UK as well. And the more people getting together and looking at all that info and pulling it together, it's fascinating. And it makes you wonder if there's a lot more to what these are than what maybe we previously thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's been theorized for a long time that Bigfoots may have something to do with UFOs and aliens. They may be a. I mean, I personally like the Earth is a prison for aliens that they want to get rid of. So that's where the Bigfoots come in. It was a species that maybe they were like Wookiees almost, and they were like very strong, and they were someone was trying to take over their planet, so they put them all here to get rid of them.
Maybe
And
they're our prison guards and had enough of us.
possibly, I mean, you hear stories all the time of them. If you're, I've heard stories of truckers parked on the side of the road, and they'll wake up in the middle of the night because they hear huge rocks or something hitting the side of their truck, and they go out the next morning because they're too scared to go out that night, of course, and the next morning, there's a huge dent in the side of that truck from a boulder or something that no human could lift.
The thing is, like, going back to the United States, you look at your forests. It would be so easy to disappear in those forests. They're absolutely immense. But how does a creature 7 to 8 foot tall, say 1,500 pounds, whatever, be out in the open, get seen, and just disappear?
Well, that also brings up the theory of whether they're extra dimensional or not. Because what if they
Yeah,
can? What if they can just think about disappearing for a second, and there's this little portal that pops up next to them, and they pop through it, and they can go wherever they please.
I think personally that's sort of where I sort of lean to towards them now, because I've just seen so much evidence that has made me rethink everything I thought, sort of researching it from growing up.
Now, when you say you saw evidence, do you mean personally, or do you mean you've seen other people?
I've seen from other people and out there searching for them,
Okay,
because what they're all presenting. I mean, you've always got to be careful because you get your crackpots out there.
of course.
But the people that are really good researchers, you look at what they're all sort of pulling together, and there does seem to be this pattern. And it's like we're missing a link somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we are missing a link supposedly. I don't know whether that Bigfoot is that link or if they are a whole different species altogether from us and they were never connected to us. I mean, that they have the whole giganticus species that they thought disappeared when humans killed it out, but what if it just got good at hiding and it learned to hide from humans because humans were killing them?
Could do. And then what was it? They reckon that was 12 foot tall, didn't they?
Around there, 12 foot, 15 foot, I've heard. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different stories about giants, and they found a lot of giant skeletons all over America and in the UK and everything else too. So there could have been multiple giant species out there that we didn't know about.
There's so much we don't know about that's out there, even now.
Well, I truly believe the government knows about it, but they just don't want to tell us.
I saw something. I can't remember who was doing it. He was American, a researcher, and he was saying that if the American government turned round and said Bigfoot is real, they wouldn't be able to log a lot of the forest they log because you would technically have an endangered species.
Yes.
Now, over here, that would be the same. If we've got wilderness here and we turn around and said, yeah, we've got something going on here, we think we've got some kind of creature you call Bigfoot that actually exists, that would put a stop to so much.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're willing to stay sort of out of the way and hidden, from a government's perspective, they would want to not admit it.
Yeah, because they don't want to stop their development on lands they could make money off of or get oil out of or whatnot.
It's all about the money.
Which, if you go to, I believe it is Washington State in the USA, and there's, I forget, it's called the Olympic Valley Project, I believe. It's a whole area on the Pacific coast that's just, they found multiple big nest-looking structures on the ground all together. Yeah. And I believe Small Town Monsters, the production company, in the third part of their Search for Bigfoot series, I think they did film this part of the country, and they got permission to go in there and shoot footage and everything and do a little investigating. I've yet to see it because I'm behind on everything I try to watch, but it's just, I've heard them talk about it, and it sounds mystical in a way almost to be there. But it also sounds a little frightening because if there's multiple nests, that means there's multiple Bigfoot families, and I am not trying to be in the middle of multiple Bigfoot families at once because you don't know how they're going to react to you.
But you look at those nests and you look at some that have been filmed and photographed, and they've also found a lot of markers where like they've bent these branches to create structures. And some of these branches are so tall that you would need strength to bend them over, and also you would need fingers to be able to grip things.
Of course.
If you don't got fingers, you're not going to do it.
No.
Now, I always say about America, because your forest's so vast, what random person is going to want to travel deep into those forests, risk getting lost, just to leave random markers and nests somewhere?
They're not going to.
Go home.
I mean, sure, there might be one or two people out there that would, but I don't think they will because it's pointless. The chance of someone seeing it that far out is even low to begin with.
I know somebody whose granddad who used to live in Cornwall in the UK, and they're meant to have these down there. And he used to do a lot of hiking and a lot of walking. And he went in quite a remote area. And he was one of those people, he's black and white. Nothing exists.
Yeah.
Other than what you see. This 3D world is it. And he was walking, and he swears he had things thrown at him. And when he looked around, he swears he saw a 6 to 7 foot humanoid, covered in brown hair, just walking away in the forest. And it's going back to the point you made earlier, these things are seen all over the world. Absolutely everywhere.
Yep. I mean, and I just posted a picture of this in my Paranormal the New Normal Facebook group the other day, or last week, I think it was. But I mean, you got the Bigfoot, you got the Yeti, because I hate Abominable Snowman. You got it's it sounds like a freaking Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon, but
give it a cuddle when you hear that.
But you got the Yeti. I mean, you got the Yowie down in Australia, and there's Japanese, Chinese versions of this. There's Russian versions of it. Like there's every country has their own versions of ape men, hairy men, whatever you want to call them. And it's
I've heard some great stories in Australia, in the outback.
oh, I would love to talk to someone from Australia who was actually like a Yowie investigator. I would love to talk to someone because I've heard so many I've heard of because I don't know if you ever heard of Monsters and Mangas podcast.
Yes, I've heard that.
It's I've heard a lot of calls on there from people in Australia about like hearing Yowie howls or seeing Yowie tracks and or seeing Yowies themselves. Like it's the same as Bigfoot. Like so many people just hear things in their backyard and they don't know what it is. And they play it on YouTube and everybody's like, "Oh, that's a cougar screaming," or "No, that's an alligator screaming if they're down south." But no, it's not. Like wildlife experts would be like, "That's none of those creatures. None of those creatures have ever uttered a noise like that."
We need more research on the Australian outback, definitely.
Yeah, well, I'm too scared to do it because of all the other creatures that we know exist that can kill you in the outback.
Australia, anything can kill you.
Yeah, I mean, let's not even get into the bunyip, but that's a whole nother thing that will kill you. But yeah, I mean, there's enough animals we know about in Australia that will kill you. I think they have the 9 most deadly creatures in the world in Australia, I believe,
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
between snakes and everything else. Like it's just insane. It's like God picked Australia and said, everything that can kill you is going in this one little island, and we're just gonna put everything there so that maybe people stay out of it.
Yeah, we'll just dump it all there.
But then no, the British decided to use it as a prison island. But which is interesting enough, and that's a whole nother subject that could go into another day. But so what would you say the church thing is your weirdest experience, or do you have one that's weirder?
Oh no, I've had plenty over the years. I've seen objects moved. Um, I've seen things that have blown my mind because I'm a very analytical person. I have to see it to believe it, and I'm what you call a skeptical believer. You know, I totally believe in the paranormal, but not everything that happens is paranormal.
No.
And I'm one of those people I like to debunk and research. But I mean, one of my favourite haunts, so to speak, is a place called Langard Fort. And
Why have I heard of that?
you might well have. It's based on the coast in Suffolk. It's where the Royal Marines had their first battle and they were actually created, and they became Royal Marines when they actually repelled the Dutch invasion, going back to the 1600s.
Okay, yeah.
There was a fort on site before then, but it wasn't really much. And then they started adding to it over the years. And then 1700s, they started adding more, and 1800s, and it was used throughout World War II as well. Now, in that place, because I love my EVPs, and in that place, you get the most amazing Class A EVPs. You get the most amazing activity. I mean, I used to be quite skeptical about table tipping. And I used to think, you know, people subconsciously removing the table. And I've seen a few impressive things table tipping, but until I went to Langard Fort, where we had a session there, and the first time I saw it, the table was going absolutely nuts. And I kept noticing people's hands were coming away with the force of it. And I thought, okay, this has got my interest. So I knelt down, got everybody asking questions, getting them trying to get this table to move even more. And the sheer force behind it was phenomenal. So I asked everybody to turn their hands over. And this table was still going. So I walked up to this table and I said, on the count of 3, I said, everyone step away. And I counted to 3 and they all stepped away. And I just, full strength, went down on this table and I couldn't stop it moving. And it shot out from underneath my hand and it hit the door. And I heard it the other side of the fort.
Oof.
And I turned round to the guy that was there and he said, do you believe it now? I said, I will never doubt it again. that was impressive. And I've had so many great table tipping experiences at that place. And
That's
they love to communicate. They love it.
Oh, of course they do. I mean, I'm sure they're bored out of their minds with no interaction. Because, I mean, I have my own theories on spirits because my house does have the the residents who built it living in it still, even though they passed. And we found that out by hiring paranormal investigators back a little before Christmas. But it's just, as far as I'm concerned, I think they kind of age like people do. Like they go from being baby spirits where they're just mist and they can't really do anything yet, but scare people. Not even by purpose, just by being there. And I think they slowly evolve into a shadow person type of creature who they can make themselves look humanish, like after they've been gone for a while and they learn how to control themselves a little bit. They can make themselves look humanish, but it's still just a shadow. And that's when they can really start to mess with things and just really scare the crap out of people at that point because people are horrified of shadow people, at least most are.
See, the point you've made there is a good point, because one of the things that really annoys me in the paranormal is the D word, and everything's negative.
No.
And you go to investigate somewhere where someone's had problems, and they'll be like, "Oh, I got scratched. Things have been moved. It's evil." A lot of the time, it's something just trying to get your attention. And even where people have been scratched before now, sometimes it's not intentional. They overreach when trying to get that attention. And with regards to shadows, is that just the way some people perceive some spirits?
Possibly. I mean,
But because of the color black, what do humans instantly think?
evil.
Activity.
Yep.
And I've been to so many investigations where shadows have been seen, spirits, but they're not negative. And I think we have to get out of this mentality. Right, we've seen it's black, it's evil. Everything's got to be the D word. And you see that so much in the paranormal at the moment. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I've had some great experiences at places that have shadow people and are not negative. And like you said, they sort of, in a way, kind of grow, I suppose.
And just to finish that off, I do believe the final form a spirit can take once they become old enough and powerful enough as a spirit is the full body apparition that people rarely see nowadays. I mean, I think that's the final form because I think a lot of them don't get to that point because they find a way to move on before that point. Or they have investigators help them move on because I have heard of investigators helping spirits move on.
The first spirit I ever saw was a shadow, and it was the house that I grew up in. When I was a little boy, I used to have loads of comic annuals.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have what was like an old telephone table, and on these old telephone tables, they were hollow in the centre, and they would literally square. There was no legs; it was just like square. And what I would do, I'd put all my annuals inside the bottom of the telephone table when I went to bed, and I would line them all up so they were, you know, all level. And while I was in bed, I'd hear them played with and moved around. And I always knew someone was walking around the bedroom. And growing up, my parents never said anything about a spirit or nothing. Until I was a little bit older, I heard my mum mention it. And I questioned her. And she said, yes, I'm convinced there's a ghost here. Well, we used to get quite a lot of different activity go on. And sometimes it'd stop for months and then it'd just be constant. And one day as a kid, do you remember the old VHS players?
Oh God, yeah, I grew up with VHS players.
I was watching a video and the TV to myself, and I walked up to it and I put the old VHS tape in, and you see it go through the slot, and I had this most weirdest feeling I was being watched intently and something didn't feel right. And I turned around and I faced the doorway, and I could feel something was in that doorway. And all of a sudden, the shadow came out, went along the side of the wall, into the back wall, disappeared. And I just stood there, just trying to fathom what I just seen.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I'd seen anything in that house.
As a kid, I mean, it's always terrifying to see these type of things. I was lucky. My parents built both the houses I lived in as a kid, and the property wasn't built on a native burial ground or anything like that. Luckily, so I never had any experiences until recently when I was staying at my now wife, then girlfriend's house. Because I don't know if you guys in the UK know about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes.
My wife's house, family house that she lived in before she moved in with me, is right on the edge of the Bridgewater Triangle.
Ah.
So we've had UFO sightings there. We her house is full of shadow people and spirits because it's built on a Native American burial ground. Because the Wampanoag tribe, which is the tribe that was killed by colonists very brutally and without mercy, they actually lived right in the area where the house is because there's actually the rock that's on the side of her property and her neighbor's property was it was a corn grinding rock. It's actually like a historical marker. It was a corn grinding rock for like that tribe. They would always grind their corn there. I don't know why. I mean, to make cornmeal, I guess, but I really don't understand the reason for doing that. But that's just something that I never understood. And I mean, the Bridgewater Triangle is full of other things too. And she's seen some of them. Some of them she's never had any experience with. I mean, but there have been creatures in her backyard that she can't explain. Creatures that look like little monkeys, like not Bigfoot, but like little monkeys with tails, like chimpanzees or whatnot. Because she has chickens, and there was actually this creature was outside her chicken coop trying to get in.
That is so strange.
It is, and I'm like, why couldn't you go outside and take a picture? Just take a picture and run back inside. Like,
it's amazing when you get these areas that just have so much different phenomenon going on. Skinwalker Ranch. That's a fascinating place. There seems to be so much going on there and so many different types of phenomenon.
Brandon Fugal, who is on the show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, I have been trying to get him on the show for like a month now because he is on Twitter and I've tagged him in things trying to get him on, same as I tagged you in the thing to get you on here, but he just is not responding. I don't know. I might have to reach out through email or something. I'm gonna look into that more, but because I've been watching Secret Skinwalker Ranch for the first two seasons it was on, and I'm waiting for the third to be on Hulu. But I do love that show, and I of course knew of that ranch beforehand because I've heard the legends and the tales, and it's fascinating how all these triangles across the United States and the world have like these strange phenomena that no one can explain. But it's all,
what does it all mean? It's fascinating.
of course, it's super fascinating, and I mean, like, do you guys have any creatures over there that are similar to like puckwudgies are in the Bridgewater Triangle, like little Ewok-looking creatures almost?
The Tommy Knockers.
I've heard that. I've heard that name, but they're supposed to be like goblins, right? Kind of.
Kind of. I mean, a lot of people know Tommy Knockers because of the Stephen King film. But the actual story was, again, that comes from the likes of Cornwall, is the miners would hear knocking. And they would hear knocking all around the mines. And quite often, the mines would collapse soon after. And whereas Stephen King film kind of pits them as being evil, the miners actually saw them as protectors. And that they were actually helping them. Because these people that were experts in the underground couldn't find any logical reason why this knocking was going on. And then at one point, a lot of people from the UK travelled to America to mine.
Yeah.
And so it's believed that the Tommy Knockers then came over to America, and that's where they got the name Tommy Knockers.
Huh.
And some people have seen them as sort of goblin-type creatures, sort of like a little bit like what you described as well.
Huh, interesting. I mean, because there's puckwudgies and there's a bunch of other small creatures too all around the world. So, I mean, it makes sense that if there's a big creature all around the world, why wouldn't there be little creatures all around the world that just would be even better at hiding because they're small?
Rendlesham Forest allegedly has something called shug monkey.
I've heard that term.
Yeah, he apparently he's witnessed in Cambridge and also witnessed in Suffolk and Rendlesham.
That's funny because we got a Cambridge here in Massachusetts too, but it's in the heart of Boston.
we got quite a few cryptids in the UK, but a lot of it, one of the big ones is the black dogs. That's seen a lot.
The black dogs / the hellhounds, yeah.
Yeah, or black shuck as he's often called.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories of those Monsters Among Us and everything else, but
yeah.
Have you ever come across one by chance?
I've never come across one. I've been to the area where some of the legendary stories are. That picture that I sent you with me by the church door?
Yes.
That's called Blytheborough Church. And what happened was, going back, I think it's 1600s, there was a big storm in the area. And this dog, hellhound, was meant to have attacked a church and then eventually found his way to Blytheborough. And apparently he burst into that church, killed a couple of people, and also lightning struck the tower, causing it to collapse.
Hmm.
And the legend is that that happened because of the black shuck. And if you look at that picture, you see where my hand is, you've got these black marks.
Yeah.
Apparently that's supposed to be the claw marks of the black shuck.
And for all the listeners of this, you can see that picture on either the ad for this live stream, or it will also be on the cover of the podcast for this episode as well, because that I knew there had to be some significance behind that picture, and that's why you're sending it. I knew there had to be. People don't send me pictures of them touching things unless there's a significance to that thing.
That sounds dirty.
Yeah, okay, that does sound dirty. I meant it, but which for me is rare because I usually mean things be dirty, but not on this podcast. That's my other podcast. But
I've actually got a theory about those marks that they claim are claw marks. I've got a distinctive feeling that they were made and someone's used a holy candle and actually burnt those black marks in.
Huh.
Because going back, especially to those times when people were very into their demonic and everything's evil and witches and that.
Yeah.
One thing that I've researched and I've seen a lot is using a holy candle and burning marks onto a door to stop anything evil getting in.
Yeah, like sigils and whatnot. I can't think of other names for it right now, but like sigils or just protective signs. I mean, anybody who's a fan of supernatural knows all about those. But
yeah, and that is really common historical sites in the UK. You can go to some really old buildings and you can see like where marks have been put and keep witches out and all sorts.
How close are you to Highgate Cemetery, out of curiosity?
Oh, probably Highgate would be about 2 hours from here, I think.
Because that's more like towards London, is it not?
It is. Highgate is London. And that's an interesting place.
Yeah, because I mean, I talked about on this show before about the legends of the Highgate vampire, but do you have any belief in that, or do you think it's possibly a real thing?
In terms of a vampire, no. I think a lot of that is BS and made up from the people at the time. However, I think there's an element in truth is there is something dark at that cemetery, something not particularly nice. I know a lot of investigators that have been there and they've not liked it. And I know people that they're like me, they don't back away from anything, but they've been there and they've had the most horrible feeling in some areas. So I think there's a lot going on there. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a very active place and there's probably something quite nasty there as well. What that is, I don't know. But in terms of an actual vampire, no, I don't think it's a vampire.
You don't think vampires ever could have existed?
I think the only vampires that probably existed were humans. I don't think an actual vampire. I've not seen anything that's convinced me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything that convinced me either that vampires truly ever existed. I mean, everybody knows the story of Dracula and the real Count Dracula and
Yeah,
how the legend got started. Everybody knows that story, but Vlad the Impaler. But it's just I don't know. I feel like if dogmen exist and that's the basis for werewolves, there has to be something out there that was the basis for vampires.
if you research certain spirits, um, I think there's one in Romania actually. It's meant to suck, I believe, the soul of the human, and when it takes the soul, it turns you into whatever that is. So when you look at the vampire situation, Bram Stoker, he's created a modern version of a vampire, but there's kind of an element in truth in terms of previous stories with spirits and that.
Well, I mean, Romania is where that would start because that was the basis for all vampire legends is out of Romania, Transylvania area. But I mean, that whole part of Europe is just creepy in a way. Like that whole part of Europe is just. It seems like there's a lot more going on there than people realize.
Europe is creepy and dark with its history, without doubt.
Oh God, I mean, yeah, there are so many different legends in Europe of different creatures and different scary monsters and what have you, like that just could exist but maybe don't. I mean, who? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, really. I mean, Germany alone with the Black Forest, the amount of cryptids that could come out of that forest is just ridiculous. But so, have you had experiences with anything else we haven't really touched on yet, or?
Um, I mainly deal with the spirit side and ghost side. I do have fascination with UFOs because I love space. Um, I've researched cryptids. I love cryptids, but really elementals, I love that. I don't think we know enough about them.
We don't. I mean, we don't. We know basic stuff that has been passed down through lore, but other than that, we really don't know enough because too many people don't believe they exist. That's the problem. All the people. It's not like it used to be back in the day when everybody believed they existed and they would do all these rituals and steps to prevent them from bothering them.
And how many cases get labelled the D word that could be an elemental upset?
Now, you keep saying the D word, and I know what you mean. Everybody else knows what you mean. I'm pretty sure, but do
Yeah,
you
demon.
do you not believe that angels and demons exist, or do you just think too much is blamed on them?
I think, I've no doubt these things exist, and I've no doubt that demonic exists. But we've kind of got to a point in the paranormal, everything is being labelled demonic. You could have a 80-year-old woman who died in her kitchen and her spirit's there holding a tray of cookies. And someone will be doing a session in there going, it's demonic. And it's got to the point so much now, even on TV, it's demonic, because it sells.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's since the movies started coming out in the 60s and 70s, like Exorcist and Omen, like everybody believes now that they know that a investigator that wants to just be out there to get fame knows all they have to do is say, "Oh, we faced a demon at this place," and
Yeah.
whether it was or not, you just, I mean, which it rarely is. Demons, I don't think get involved in Earth too often because I don't think they are allowed up here a lot.
You're going to tangle with something like that's that powerful. You're going to know it.
Oh, you're going to be lucky if you get out there in one piece at that point. But because I mean, if they do exist, because I'm agnostic personally, and I don't know what I believe when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I've heard stories that make me believe they definitely do exist, and I've heard stories that make me doubt it. But I mean, well, we're going to get into creature feature in a few minutes probably, and I'm gonna bring up another one creature in there that will bring up the whole idea of angels or demons. But before we do that, I just want to make sure there's anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to tell the people about, or
Um, I'm was looking to do my own podcast recently, but unfortunately, my partner who was going to do it with has passed away.
Ooh,
A good
that's
friend of mine.
that's
But
horrible.
I am still looking to go ahead and do it. And also talking about Landguard Fort, I'm looking at doing a documentary for YouTube on Landguard Fort.
Interesting.
So hopefully just help promote it in the UK. It's such a great place.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're that close to Rendlesham Forest too, I would definitely start doing a documentary there. Though I know it's been done, but you might find something. Who knows?
Next time I go there, I'll live call you. You can say you went from Forest.
That'd be interesting for sure. That would definitely be a good event for Paranormal: The New Normal. Just give me a heads up so I can give me a heads up so I can make sure I can set it up. But 100%, yeah, it's just
I've been into this a long time, like since I was 15, because of growing up in that house. And the paranormal never ceases to amaze me.
no, it really doesn't. I mean, the paranormal is altogether just such a fascinating topic, and there's so many degrees of it. I mean, I have even gotten guests on here for so many topics that I want to get them on here for because it's hard to find people who investigate the more out there topics. I mean, spirits and ghosts, yeah, there's a lot of people that like to investigate that because those are interesting topics and they actually are, no, I wouldn't say easy, but less hard to find. Like haunted locations are everywhere. Every town has a couple.
People about elementals because so many people don't investigate elementals. And even if they accept they exist, oh no, we don't touch them. And it seems to be I don't know. I'm not sure what the reason is. I suppose saying something's demonic is a bit more scary, and they
Oh,
prefer to go down that route. Personally, I wouldn't want to pee off an elemental.
yeah, I mean, at least with demons, there's ways to stop them and ways to make them stop what they're doing and go back to where they came from. But with elementals, it's just there's not enough known to know how to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, a demonic has a goal, a purpose, and you know what it is they're looking to do. With elementals, if you upset them, it's like sticking a hand grenade in a box, a live hand grenade in a box of TNT. You never know where it's going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, I've read books about elementals. I've read fiction and nonfiction books about elementals, but I mean, even the fiction ones, like they're based on some truth because there's always some truth to everything if it's regarding something that exists in this world. But all right.
Well,
Well,
if you come to the UK, I'll take you elemental hunting.
I'm gonna put that on my list of things I gotta do once I get some money for this podcast. But
We'll go to Mistley Woods, where the Witchfinder General used to torture and dunk some of the witches in the 1600s.
oh yeah, I mean, I live somewhat close to Salem, Massachusetts too. So anywhere there's witch activity of witches and stuff or witches being executed, it's always.
There is elemental activity in those woods.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never been in the woods around Salem, but I've been in the Salem town with my wife and kids a couple years ago before the big C started, and that's basically where it all started. But like that's I mean, I've been in the paranormal before that, but I kept looking around, hoping to see something, but you just don't see anything. It's just not the way it goes.
Hi.
He's saying hi.
Your new co-host.
No, she likes to pop in at one point or another in every show I do. It's just the way it is. I've learned to not fight it. Because if you tell her she can't come in, she'll come in more than she usually does. But all right, I think it's time we jump into creature feature because this is usually all my guest favorite part because it's just talking what we believe and what theories we believe with different cryptids. And I usually try to talk about ones that we didn't bring up in the show already. That way, there's a little variety. And even if you don't have experiences with these, you could say what you believe. And since I believe you're my first UK guest, you can give what the UK typically believes in these things as well.
Go for it.
All right. I did mention these previously in the show, but we didn't really talk about them. And I've heard stories of these being in the UK. But what do you think of dogmen?
Dogman's interesting. I've done a lot of research on that. there is a backstory, isn't there, about being born to this woman, etc., who put a curse on the child or something.
You're thinking of a different cryptid, but we will get to that eventually. But now you said that.
That's right, yeah, I'm thinking of the other one. Um, Dogman's interesting. There's a hell of a lot of sightings in America of Dogman,
Oh,
and
yes.
there's too many to say there's not something. And again, on the sightings, it just seems to disappear.
Not always. I had someone on my podcast actually who he didn't have the experience, but one of his army buddies did from his army days, where that he saw the same dogmen twice when he was a child. They typically from what I've heard, tend to stay in an area when they live in an area, like the Beast of Bray Road or the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes up in Michigan.
I mean, they can be there, but they can just go really quickly, and that kind of it makes me think we're missing something. How are these creatures, if they exist, doing that and just being able to vanish? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, from what I heard, they tend to just get down all fours and run at that point. And they run fast though because they're part dog or part whatever they are. But I've heard theories that I know you hate the word, but they're demonic. I've heard that theory. I've heard theories that they're just creatures that have existed since the beginning of time, because look at the ancient Egyptian gods, look at Native Americans saying they had to deal with them. And I mean, it's just so much history in these creatures and this is where the W word that I hate, werewolf, comes into it, because that's where the legend came from. And they add all these features to it, like silver bullets and the moon and all this. But I don't think that's what it is. I mean, especially since the Beast of Bray Road has been around for 60, 70 years now.
Maybe something interdimensional?
Maybe, but I think they just tend to live in areas. Like, I think because there's so many sightings across the United States, and there's a website that I've been trying to get the people who started it on the show. It's called North American Dogmen Project, but they have a map on there, and a lot of these sightings are clustered together in certain areas. So what if there is a tribe of them or a group of them, multiple groups of them, like Bigfoots, living across the world?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, there's a famous song too that Derek played on Monsters Mongers podcast about these guys were out in the woods hunting, and they found a dog out there, and they're playing with the dog, and then it ran in a log, and it came out the other side standing up on two legs as human. Like, it's a whole interesting thing. I don't know what to believe with dogmen, because I definitely believe they exist. There's been too many stories for them not to exist, but it's just, I don't know. I wish people would do more research into it, because that's another thing they don't do research into enough.
Yeah, it's one of those cryptids. There's not the same intention as you got people with Bigfoot. You've got so many people doing Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to know a little bit more about this dogman, because people are seeing something.
I mean, Small Town Monsters is the only group I really know that has been doing something like looking into it, because they've done the Beast of Bray Road movie they did, and they just did, it either came out or is coming out soon, The Howl of the Rougarou, which, I mean, the Rougarou is the South American South's version of the Dogman, basically, but it came over from, I believe, the Caribbean islands, because it's New Orleans mainly, so it's that Cajun folklore. So I don't know. I mean, and plus with the werewolf theories out there, it has to exist, because that's where werewolves came from. Same as vampires came from succubus or different spirits, whatever you want to call them.
I'm a great believer with folklore, that as wild as some folklore is, when you look into it, there's an element of truth somewhere, and it came from somewhere.
Yeah, I like to always say Rumpelstiltskin is Loki. But I mean, that's my theory. But all right. Well, you mentioned this one before when you're trying to think of what Dogmen wore. Let's go to the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, this one I find fascinating. The whole backstory of it, I don't believe that. But again, there's so many sightings of the Jersey Devil. And I've been listening like podcasts, people's sightings, and people that are very genuine. And they've they've witnessed something, they've seen something. But what is it? I just find it totally fascinating.
And with the Jersey Devil, I mean, it's weird because it's in one general area. It's not like it's a nationwide thing, even. It's in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, which, yes, is a very creepy forest. That's for sure. I've driven, I even driving through it, you kind of like look at it and you're like, who knows what could be in there? But because I grew up in New York, so I went to New Jersey once in a while for concerts and whatnot, or to drive to Florida. I used to go through New Jersey, but and it's just I don't know. I mean, the Jersey Devil kind of goes back to my whole Earth is a prison planet for aliens type of thing, because that would explain Bigfoot. That might explain dogmen. That might explain. I mean, it would be an answer for so many cryptids if that's what was the case. It would
I've
be
heard interdimensional mentioned a lot for that one, but I honestly don't know. I'm just fascinated by the amount of accounts.
well. That's the one that you were bringing up before, where it was the 13th child of
That's it.
a Mama Leeds, I believe her name was, or
Yeah.
Mother Leeds, and supposedly when it was born, she cursed the child before it was born because she was sick of having kids. Because at 13 kids, I think any woman would be, but it supposedly it came out and it was disfigured with bat-like wings with hoofs, and it shot out the window and ran to the Pine Barrens. And since then, it's been seen every so often. I mean, nowhere's nowhere as much sightings as Bigfoot or Dogman or anything else, but it's been there still are sightings every couple of years of someone saying they saw it, and who knows how many people have sightings and they don't say anything because they think they're going to get laughed at.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest problem with the paranormal world is people think they're going to be laughed at, so they're afraid to say something.
Oh yeah, I've come across many people over the years regards to various things that they've had experiences and they want to get it off their chest. And when they know that you're actually going to believe them, they come out with something so extraordinary and it's fantastic. But
Yeah.
they've kept it inside.
Yeah, I mean, people come out on their deathbeds like, "Oh, I saw Bigfoot. Yeah, he was around my cabin when I was a kid for years." And it's like, "Why'd you wait till now? We need details." And then they pass, and it's like, "Oh, come on." But it's just
Leave
one
it
of
on
the.
a cliffhanger.
All right. And since you said you do like this top, you said you like this topic, but we didn't really get to talk about it because, like a lot of people, you don't really have experiences with this. What do you think? What do you believe is actually out there for as far as extraterrestrials go? Like as far as grays, reptilians, the Norse looking ones,
Oh,
any of them you want to talk about?
I think if you look at the bigger picture, first off, this universe, it's immense. Without doubt, I think there's life out there. How arrogant is the human race for a human being to turn around and say, no, it's only us? Because we're really not that intelligent as a species when you look at what we're doing to the planet.
No, we're
Let's
not.
be honest.
We're not.
We,
We're not.
we are as thick as a brick, the way we treat this planet. So without doubt, I think there's life out. I think the governments they know what they need to know. I think without doubt, I think these things clearly come and go as they please. I think we could be dealing with a mixture of coming from space, but also interdimensional. If you look at some of the research, you see these things changing shape and then suddenly moving at great speed, and then they're gone. You don't see them go. So where are they going to? And then also you're getting this kind of visual of a more physical craft that some people have cited. So I think we're dealing with a mixture. But then I think we are the paranormal as a whole. Whether you look at ghosts, life after death, you look at elementals, UFOs, cryptids, interdimensionals. I think we are dealing with everything that is linked in some way. We don't just live in this 3D world. We live in a world where I think there's so many different dimensions of pockets to it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it has to be interdimensional travel because we would see people, anybody with a telescope would see UFOs just chilling in space, like above Earth, like oh, we're just waiting here to go, probe someone, we're waiting in line. But I imagine it like a line at a BJ's gas waiting to get in, but basically, but I mean,
what did you think of the Nimitz videos?
The what videos? I'm sorry, you cut out for a sec.
Nimitz videos.
Nimics?
Nimitz.
I can't say I've seen them. That's not the Tic Tac, right?
Yeah, Tic Tac videos.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Over here we call them Tic Tac UFOs, but
Okay.
yeah, I've seen them. I mean, I heard Derek talk about them too on Monsters Among Us, so I had to look them up. And I mean, like every other UFO video out there, it definitely proves there's something out there that humans can't build anything to go that fast yet. That's the biggest thing. That I mean, as far as we know, the governments haven't built anything like that. And if they did, they'd be showing it off. They wouldn't be hiding it. Because they like all the government.
Chinese, we'd be in trouble already by now.
Oh, I mean, well, let's not get into that. But otherwise, we'll get into the big C word here. But but yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, what if you look at all the different religions of the past? I mean, they all have these different godly beings that they supposedly were visited by. What if they were just different species of alien? What if all the Egyptian
Sorry, I lost you.
That's okay. What if all the Egyptian ones were just different, were just like a group, almost like a diplomacy group sent from a alien Senate or alien House of Representatives? And that's why they're all
based on what you just said, my own belief is that there is information in the past. Because if you look at some of the old hieroglyphs, some of the old things left by ancient civilizations, and also how did they know where certain galaxies were when we can only find out the technology we got today?
Yeah.
How?
Exactly. I mean, look at all the cave paintings as well from when we were primal creatures. They only painted things they saw, like animals or fire, but yet there's pictures of greys and pictures of reptilians inside caves, and they're dated 20,000 years ago or something like that. And it's like, well, now this has to be something. There can't just be, it can't be coincidence if it's in all over the world. If it was in one cave, then yeah, maybe someone's really good at making a fake, but it's all over the world. It's in Africa, it's in South America, it's in Russia. I mean,
and going back to the very beginnings, they shouldn't have known these other civilizations because they were too far away. You go too far back, they wouldn't have traveled and met them yet.
No.
You can see all of this left around the world where they're depicting things coming from above, and they're depicting star systems. Well, if we've only got the technology now because of the likes of somebody like NASA and all these geniuses, where did they get that info from? They wouldn't have known.
Have you heard of Valiant Thor?
Yes.
He supposedly was an alien that came to America in the 60s, I believe, to President Lyndon Johnson, I want to say. I had to look this up last time because I was wrong, but he basically, Valiant Thor, was supposedly in the White House and in the Pentagon for months and months and months. And like, he was advising them with all the nuclear war stuff going on against Russia. Like, you guys need to stop or we are going to start interfering. You guys need to calm down, or we will come down and interfere before you come and take us out. Which, I mean, yes, I know that's the basis of a lot of science fiction novels, but this was actually something that supposedly really happened on Earth, on the United States, on Earth, and it just supposedly really happened. And I don't know why I believe, because it was there's pictures of it too, supposedly, of this. He looks like a man because it's what they call a Norse looking alien. Like, if there's a show on TBS a couple years ago called People of Earth, and they did a really good job of like showing the three main types of aliens people see and how they work together to like accomplish things. But so he was a Norse, so he looked just like a European that maybe was visiting the president. And there's supposed to be pictures of him like sitting at press conferences next to the president. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like this story should be bigger than it is because it's like a small, not really talked about alien story.
There's also the one of Roosevelt, isn't there? Supposed to have had a meeting and all of that.
That was it. Roosevelt was Valiant. I don't remember. I mean, I keep saying I got
an agreement with the Greys, was it, for abductions or something?
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, because that's what they based the X-Files storyline off of.
I'll tell you what fascinates me though is the amount of incidents over nuclear bases.
Mm-hmm.
Rendlesham incident was an American air base,
Yep.
and you guys had nukes there.
And also look at all the incidents out in the Nevada, Utah desert where there's nuclear testing that was done. I mean, it's a wormhole just to talk about it because it goes down so many different alleys as far as aliens are concerned. But since you just said something about seeing something over areas of nuclear waste and whatnot, what do you think of Mothman? Since it can be possibly an alien too.
Do you know what? I think Mothman may be my favorite cryptid.
I've heard that a lot. I mean, it's definitely in my top 5 for sure because it's just, I mean, the TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Chernobyl, and now in 2017, 18, Chicago. So, I mean, President Trump even said something about the Mothman when he was in office, because that's when it was getting sighted in Chicago.
Isn't it amazing though that before these big disasters, this is seen? And again, are we looking at something interdimensional? And what is attracting it to that area? Is it a warning to us? Is it feeding off the negative energy that's going to happen? Mothman, I find really, really fascinating.
Yes, and it also brings up the word you hate, because is Mothman a demon bringing doom, or is Mothman an angel forewarning a doom like your Tommy knockers?
Yeah, see, a lot of people, I've heard them go down the evil route. My own belief is we don't know enough. Certainly, even if it's not a warning, it's coming because of negative energy that's about to happen. You can certainly take it as a warning if you see it. But what its actual intention is, that's another thing. I mean, there's a lot of people speculate it feeds off the energy.
Which I've heard stories of people going to investigate because there's been tons of people that have investigated the TNT area in West Virginia now in Point Pleasant because of the Mothman sightings in the 60s and 70s. And they will go to this TNT area, and I've heard stories of people being in there, and all of a sudden they see these red eyes, or they hear the flapping of wings all of a sudden, and like they get a really spooky feeling like something's watching them. So, is it still there, or is there multiple of them? Because how could it be there, but in Chernobyl and in Chicago at the same time?
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you said that, because one of the points I was going to raise, people call it Mothman, and I always talk about the same entity. But why are we assuming it's one entity?
Exactly.
It could be multiples. The same as any other species, any other cryptid, like Bigfoot. You know, what people seem to be finding seems to indicate they're in pockets, and some people believe family pockets. With these things, they could be a type of creature attracted to something, and it pops up in these particular times.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm not gonna get us into Bigfoot again fully because that'll take us an hour. But but I mean, yeah, you can spend a week talking about Bigfoot. You really can. But Bigfoot, my belief is they are like any other animal. Like, let's say, not they're not like lions, but I want to say they're like tigers, where they mate, they have younglings or youngins, whatever you want to call them, young feet. And I think once the young feet reach a certain age, they're made to leave and go find their own territory.
Yeah.
So that's why people will sometimes see either multiple Bigfoots knocking on wood and communicating with each other in a forest, or they'll also see one solo one just walking through a plain or something because it's just traveling, trying to find its own mate someday. And I mean, we all know the stories of the brides of the woods too, which do Bigfoot abduct humans to try to mate with? Maybe. I've heard weirder things. I know there's a whole book series about that because it's a fictional book series, but I know there's a whole book series about that because I heard about it on a podcast called Wild Things where she interviewed the author. But because you know the name Grover Krantz from Bigfoot Research, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
This podcast Wild Thing, it's his niece, I believe, who's the head host of the podcast, and she basically just continued her uncle's work on Bigfoot and continued researching herself. And I've heard the story on Monsters Among Us, the famous story of Mac, who fell out of a tree while hunting and was supposedly nursed by a female Bigfoot and was actually fed her breast milk.
Yeah, I've heard that. And didn't he have a back injury that apparently had healed super quick or something?
Exactly. Finally, someone who actually heard it besides me. Because everybody I talk to, they either never heard of Derek's podcast or they know of it, but they don't have time to listen to it. Because there's a lot of episodes now because it's been out for so long. But if you got into the beginning when it first started, then then you keep up with it. And I would love to get Mac on this show, but who knows how to contact him? I mean, I hopefully will be having Derek on this show in August, and hopefully he can lead me in that direction. I hope. Hopefully, I'm hoping that'd be the interview of my lifetime. But that story, I've heard it multiple times now because Derek's played it multiple times because it's so crazy, but believable by the detail he gives.
Yeah.
But as I said, we're not gonna spend time on Bigfoot because we already covered him somewhat in the main show, and it's just we can go all day about Bigfoot.
It's a rabbit hole.
Literally is, but let's go from the land to the sea. And since you're in the UK, what do you think about water cryptids such as Loch Ness or Ogopogo or Champ or any of those?
I think going back to remember we spoke about the Greenland shark earlier, didn't we?
Yes.
How that was found, and that was meant to be extinct. And there's some other little creatures we found as well that are supposed to have died out hundreds of thousands of years ago. There is so much we don't know about the oceans or any of the water side of this planet that who's to say in Loch Ness, because it's quite deep, something did exist. Maybe it does now, I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of fakery. There really has.
Oh, God, yes. Admitted fakery. But
yeah, and some bad fakery as well.
Well, yeah.
Some of it's quite genius. It's quite good. But I really do think it certainly is possible for something to have existed in there. Maybe not some sort of long neck dinosaur, but some sort of offshoot of some kind.
Well, it's funny because I'm actually going to have a guest on this show in about a month named Katie Elizabeth, who is a member or the head of the International Dracontology Alliance. And she actually posts videos on Facebook all the time of being at Loch Ness right now doing research. And some of the videos she's posted, it seems like there's something out there she's seeing.
I would just love to know. I really would.
But I mean, the fact that it's not just Loch Ness, the fact that it's all over America in different lakes and different rivers and all over the world. I mean, yes, I mean, it goes back to the people crossing the ocean back in 1500s, where they're seeing so many different captains wrote in their diaries, logs about, oh, we saw a sea monster today off the port side rail, and it was huge, and there's different descriptions though too. It's not just one description. It's not just they can't all be snakes. Like
giant squid that we talked about earlier is a great example.
The colossal squid, yeah.
Yeah, no one believed it. No one. Even during World War II, no one believed the sailors. They thought they were hallucinating.
Yeah.
And now we know that the colossal and giant squid exist.
Or you look at like the case of the Mary Celeste, or like what if a lot of these famous ships that sank, I mean, I don't think the Titanic by chance, but a lot of these famous ships that sank, what if there are giant dragon like dinosaur like creatures out in the ocean that just they stay deep and they only come up once in a while to get some sun and to maybe feed?
The Mariana Trench.
Yes, I mean the movie The Meg. I like the theory they used for that movie where there's a part of the bottom of the ocean that we can't get into and things can't get out of it too often, but once in a while they can.
But isn't it crazy we know more about space than we actually do about our own oceans?
Which I think is asinine of our governments to not research the ocean more.
Yeah.
I mean, with technology nowadays, you can send cameras down so deep. Why don't you? Unless they know something is there, which brings me to my next topic, actually. Merpeople.
Merpeople. There is, over the years, when you look at the Merpeople stories, there is the belief now that they mistook, is it manatees for merpeople and that? And all this kind of stuff.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that sailors were getting all excited about seeing a manatee. I don't care how long you're out at sea. A manatee is not going to look like an attractive female.
No, I wouldn't want to kiss one myself. There seems to be just, again, there's so many accounts of what they've seen. And you look at some of the old stories, very detailed accounts as well. Now, I'm not being funny, but if a manatee was swimming near me or popped up, I would know it's not, anything else other than what it is.
Yeah, which I mean,
it's a half woman, half fish, or anything.
I mean, because even if you're out at sea for months at a time and you're dehydrated, drunk, possibly drunk, or just lonely, and your brain's sending out endorphins just to make you see things because you haven't seen a woman in months, let's say. And then all of a sudden you see, but a manatee's not going to look like a woman. I mean, it may look like Ursula from Little Mermaid, but that's about it.
It'd have to be some good rum.
It'd have to be some really good rum or some really good whiskey or something, but it's just, and plus there's the whole thing of, I believe it was Herodotus in ancient Greece who wrote about Atlantis, and supposedly the Atlanteans actually went to war with Greece at one point. And I mean, just the whole idea that if there's writing about this island nation of people, what happened to them? Where's this island? Like, I know it's one of the biggest mysteries in the world is, did Atlantis really exist, or was it just made up? But I personally believe it had to exist in some degree, and something happened to them. I mean, yeah, maybe the island did sink during an earthquake or something and they all drowned, but what if they just were so, because they're technologically advanced compared to the rest of the world at that point.
We have lost so much of our ancient history.
Yeah.
We really have.
Yeah, we have 100%. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel like Atlantis had to exist at some point, and either it's like a lot of ancient civilizations that just disappeared without a trace, or maybe they evolved. Maybe they learned to live in the water.
You look at how many cities we've discovered that have been taken back by the water, and we found ancient relics, and some of them in fantastic condition as well.
Yep.
So it's more than possible.
All right. Let's see where we could jump to. Well, you did bring. All right. Well, because you said the D word, let's jump to Macaulay Mbembe and the idea that can dinosaurs still exist?
When I was growing up, I was obsessed with the Congo.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go trekking in the Congo and find dinosaurs because I love dinosaurs. Macaulay Mbembe, there's some great stories behind that. But I watched, I can't remember the name of the documentary. I watched it probably about 15 years ago or something. And these explorers got into the forest and they had made contact with some tribes. And they all had stories of this Macaulay Mbembe.
Yep.
And apparently coming out of the water and attacking the forest elephants. Now, these people, the forest is their life. It's as simple as that. They live in the forest. They know it better than anybody. Why would they see something like that and lie?
Exactly. I mean, and the fact that they showed pictures to the white man would go there and show pictures to the natives of like hippos and anything else that would possibly any other animal we know about that may or alligators or any other possible creature that may live in water that we know about that would attack people or animals. And they all shook their head and said, "Nope, that's not what we saw."
And these tribes, they don't know the outside world. They don't go on holiday. They don't go to America, UK. That they're in these remote places, and the outside world to them it's like another planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they go and log onto a computer and see things are influenced by things. Their environment, that's where they live, that's where they stay, and they know inside out.
I mean, and it's not the only creature like that to be seen in South America. In South America, and I believe it's Chile. Like there's the supposed forest that has raptors living in it, but the Chilean people respect these creatures enough that they tell people to stay out of the forest or you won't come back.
Well, the giant bird-eating tarantula, that was a myth. And when they said it was carrying chickens away, people thought they were all crazy. And no one believed that. And then they find this great big tarantula that can take a chicken and carry it off. There's just creatures everywhere we don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, we spend all this money now trying to explore space and trying to explore all these places. We need to start exploring Earth more. When again, our exploration of Earth, died out? I think in the 1950s, 60s when we started with the Cold War. We started with the Cold War. That's what really killed it.
It really feels like we deliberately avoid it sometimes.
Which the question is, why does the government avoid it?
Exactly.
That's the whole thing. But all right, I think we'll do one more, and then maybe we'll call it a day. But let's see. Actually, I'm interested in this one because I want to see if you guys have these in the UK. Have you heard of rakes or pale crawlers?
Yes, I've heard of them. We do have them in the UK. They have been experienced. I know people that experienced investigators believe they've come across something like that. Some people, you said pale crawlers.
Yeah, people call them rakes, or some people just call them pale crawlers because they don't know what else to call them.
Yeah, I know an investigator. He's American, but he lived over here for years, and he used to call them that.
Which that's one of the things that my wife saw one time when we were dating in her backyard. She was in the bathroom window on the second floor of their house, smoking a cigarette and out the window. And she's looking out the window and she sees this white creature, maybe 5, 6 feet tall, come out of the woods and just kind of stumbling around like it's unsure of where it is. And it just basically stumbled around for like a half hour or so. And then it went back into the woods and disappeared.
Thing is, if you look at it, Jeremy, there's so many things we don't know about. And you've got elementals, you've got spirits and ghosts, you've got what you can call demonic, you've got all these different energies, and they may not just be the same groups. You know, there could be so many different groups of different types of energy and beings, and you don't know what is a rake, what caused it.
Well, the most popular theory over here in America is, because I'm sure you've seen the map of how big the American cave system is.
Yes.
And
I'd love to investigate that.
I wouldn't. I would, and I wouldn't though, because have you seen the documentaries that are on Amazon called Missing 411?
Yes. There's a guy behind it, isn't there?
Because all these people that go missing in America while hunting or camping or just hiking in the woods, where are they going, and why, if there's a maps of all the missing people that very much lines up with this cave systems, and it's theorized that that's where the Rakes / pale crawlers come from, is all these caves. Maybe they're like a mole people type of creature that has lived in caves for so long, and then we started mining and we created openings. Maybe they finally started coming out, like venturing out to the top of the ground or out from underground, and they just don't know what to do once they're up here, because they can't come out during the day because the light would kill them. So maybe they come out at night and they're not sure what to do, or maybe they're just looking around if they can see it all.
It's something else we don't know enough about.
It seems like everything in this world we don't know enough about, except the stuff that doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know. There's small groups of people that still do like discovery exploration to try to find. I mean, they find what, hundreds of new species of insects every year and smaller numbers of amphibians and reptiles every year. They don't really find too many new mammals, but that's because mammals are big for the most part, or they're at least noticeable, and you'll see them. But
if no one has looked into the 411, I highly recommend it.
Oh, that documentary was very interesting, and it's interesting because I didn't know about the cave system thing until years later, and it's interesting that the cave systems and the 411 could be related, because these people just mysteriously disappear and they have communities looking for them and they can't find them. And if they were just lost in the woods, someone would find them.
If they're taken by a predator, you'd expect to see some sort of signs.
Exactly, these caves could also be how Bigfoot get around without being seen.
Yeah.
If they're big enough, if the caves are big enough, then why not? Or maybe the Bigfoots have like layers deep in these caves, that deeper than any human goes. Or the ones that do go that deep, they're the ones that are missing. But as always on this show, I don't know. I can't say anything with definitive proof because I haven't seen any research that proves it. But there's just so much out there that we could know about, but we just don't. And the governments need to start looking into stuff unless they do know the answers and they just don't want to tell us.
I've always said there's no experts in the paranormal, only experienced beginners.
I like that. I like that phrase, actually. That's a very good phrase. But
I've been doing it since 15. I've still got more questions than answers.
Yeah, that's why I started this podcast, and because I've always been into the paranormal since I was a kid, and it's just, I like talking to people who look into it and who experience it to try to get some answers, but everybody I talk to just seems to give me more questions, which is great. I love that part, but it's just, it's frustrating to no end. It really is, because it's like, I want answers, but I'm not going to get them in my lifetime probably.
And then you think you got a theory and something happens, blows it out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, some of my theories are more common ones that a lot of people agree with, or they at least see the reasoning behind. But I've heard other theories where it's just like, ooh, I like that theory. How crap that throws those three out of the water. Like it's just, it's irritating at times. But it's if you love paranormal, you put up with it, and that's just the way it goes. But all right, where can people find out about you and your investigating team if they want to?
They can find me on Twitter, Night Sky Paranormal at Night Sky Para. So I've got my Twitter account. I have just recently set up an Instagram account, Night Sky Paranormal, and have a YouTube channel, but only put things on there sort of occasionally at the moment. I'm not really into being a big YouTuber, but like I said, looking to still do the podcast and get that up and running. Just with my friend passing away, I've got to kind of rethink things at the moment.
Yes, 100. Yeah, I mean, I could understand that, of course. But and are you on the Book of Faces or no?
I don't really use Facebook a lot. I've got a personal account, but I only go on there because there's a Facebook team called One Entity Paranormal, and they're a great team, great bunch. They use mainly sort of medium type investigation, but are
Yeah,
just a genuine fun bunch, and I moderate for them.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely check them out.
But all
They're
right.
always good laugh.
Well, for all my listeners, go to the Paranormal Than Normal Facebook group, and that's where you'll see all the podcasts I'm on. I don't like naming them off on here anymore because that's just like a 10-minute freaking thing to name them off on here. But if you go to the Paranormal The New Normal Facebook group, you can find all my podcasts there. I post all the new episodes there and any show I'm a guest on. And I also am on Twitter and Instagram as Juggalo Bastard, and I always post everything there as well. So you
Great
could
name, by the way. I love it.
that came to be because of a podcast I'm on called Bracket Bastards, but that's why that name came out because I was only a Book of Faces person. I never went on the Twitter or on the gram before I became a podcaster, but now it's just a way to get my stuff out in the world. But well, we thank you all for listening to Paranormal the New Normal, and we'll be back next week with another guest who I'm at this moment not sure who it is, but I do have someone lined up. I just don't have my calendar open. Have a good week, and we thank Wazza or Wayne from Nice Guy Paranormal for being on with us. And
Thanks, everyone.
we definitely had a fun conversation. So he may come back at some point. He may be in the fabled paranormal bracket that's going to be either a 2 episode or 1 episode thing on my show in the future, possibly around Halloween. So we will check that. We'll see what happens with that. I'm still in the planning part of that, but it will be interesting because it's going to be 32 paranormal creatures in a bracket, and people can vote for them in any way they want. Believability, personal like, any way they want to vote, they can vote for. So
just make sure you come to the UK and I'll take you elemental hunting.
man, the UK has been on my bucket list for visiting since I was a kid. I don't have the money to get over there with the way plane tickets are nowadays. Might have to go on a boat, Titanic style, and try to get over there, but we will see. And thank you to all my viewers for watching on Parahost Network. We'll see you guys next week. All right. All right. I ended the video. I ended the live stream, but if you may have noticed, I didn't start recording on Zoom until you were in the middle of your church story. So do you mind if I just quickly do the intro again and then you just start telling the church story again and then I'll stop you. That way I can just edit it back into the beginning.
Where did we get up to on the church story? I can't even remember.
It was the first one about the spirit that didn't like you that kept telling you F off.
Oh yeah, Mr. Grumpy.
Yeah, it was that story. So I mean, even if you just want to tell the whole story again, like somewhat like an abridged version or something, and I'll just cut it in and I'll find the best part I'll find the best way to edit it together. I'm good at that. But All right, just gonna give it a moment of silence, and then I'll just do it real fast so we can. I'll just do it real fast. I'll give a moment of silence, and I'll do the introduction, and then we can just do that. So my podcast part will at least be because it was on the live show on Facebook, but just wasn't recorded because I was an
Yeah, I
idiot.
noticed it come up late. I thought it was my Zoom this end.
Yeah, but all right. Welcome back to Paranormal the New Normal. This week I have Wayne, aka Wazza, from Night Sky Paranormal over in the UK on my show. Wayne, how you doing today?
Not too bad, buddy. Yourself?
Can't complain. So, on the picture you sent me, you're in front of a interesting church. Is there a story behind that?
That's Blytheborough Church, the home of the Black Shark.
And yes, which I'm sure you're going to tell us about that eventually, but have you ever had a spirit that was very negative towards you in a church by chance?
Yeah, we done an investigation recently where someone approached me. They had a couple of experiences at this very old church where they felt someone come up behind them. I felt a negative presence. So I was bored, had a day off, and thought, what the hell? I'll go have a look. Didn't necessarily think anything would happen. But I went there, done an investigation. It turned out to be one that lasted 6 months. We came across a very negative spirit who I believe was previously human. And we called him Mr. Grumpy. He'd done a lot of swearing.
And you said did you ever try to figure out his history or anything like that?
Yeah, we couldn't get anything from him. He wouldn't give us a name. His favourite response was the F word. Basically, also, I'll kill you or you pay is something he likes to say. We picked up on other spirits there who were asking for help, and they referred to him as the bad man. So I tried to offer to help him, tried to be reasonable with him. But one of the things that I noticed was he started using my full name, which I never gave when I was investigating there. Now, I always say when I leave an investigation, you're not allowed to follow. Obviously, he must have got my full name and started using it. So I went back late one night and put him in his place. And I've called him Mr. Grumpy ever since. So he won't speak to me anymore, only my other half. But we have helped move the other spirits on.
Which that's amazing that you moved the other spirits on. That's always a good thing to do. I've heard investigators talk about it before, and it's a very modest work to do that because these spirits, you don't know who they are, you don't know who they were in life, but just the fact that you're helping them move on.
It was just making him realise that he couldn't hold them back any longer.
And that was the last you ever heard of Mr. Grumpy, or I mean, I assume he's still in the church.
No, he's still there. He's on his own now, even more grumpier.
I'm sure, because people who live in misery like to cause misery to others just to make them feel the pain they feel. So it definitely works.
You feel his negativity there. He's a not very nice person.
Is there any way priests could try to exorcise him from the area or get the spirit to be forced out?
I offered him help. Tried to explain to him he didn't have to stay if he didn't want to. If he's staying behind because he fears moving on, he can still move on and start to come to terms with anything that he's done. But it's just a case of he wanted to stay, which is fine, but he wanted everybody else to stay with him, and that's not right. They clearly wanted to move on, and he was putting a block to that. So he's still there, but the other spirits, they appear to have gone and passed over.
Well, that to me, I'll qualify that as a happy ending. Let Mr. Grumpy stay there alone, because is this church still used by people as like a regular place of worship, or is it just ruins?
A lot of churches in the UK now are either closed down or are used very irregularly. This one's used very rarely now. So it's not often it's got a service there.
All right, so he can live on his own without people bothering him and just be miserable by himself.
Exactly. Which, if he's happy with that and he's not bothering anybody, that's fine. But it was certainly a lot easier to get them to move on than try and remove him.
Yeah. If you can't find one solution, you find the alternative, and the alternative worked in this case, so that's always a good thing.
Exactly.